Hi everyone, my name is Monica Pruitt. I'm 33 years old and I have Usher syndrome type 2, which means I have hearing loss in addition to retinitis pigmentosa. I have about 20 degrees left. When I first told my sister I wanted to visit 7 national parks in 3 weeks, her first response was, "You know you're blind, right?" We laughed about it, but I think secretly she was worried I'd make her hike all over the Southwest. Earlier this year, we won a $10,000 travel grant through the Blind Travel Foundation to launch our project titled Accessible Travel on a Budget. With this grant, we wanted to answer questions critically, such as, what does it take to be a safe hiker with low vision? What kind of accessible features are in parks? What works? What doesn't work? Is it possible to have accessibility without losing affordability? Are there others in the blind and low vision community who enjoy hiking too? What kind of resources would help those feel more empowered to go on their own hiking adventures? Underneath all of those questions is something more personal. Growing up in Maryland, I loved hiking and I loved exploring. The more I lose my vision, the more I'm realizing how much planning it takes for something as simple as a walk in the park. This project became about finding freedom in the outdoors again. Of course, most people don't have $10,000 to throw on a trip like this. We wanted to provide a starting place by sampling different parks in a variety of regions, showcasing diversity and accessibility rather than just one itinerary for people to follow. Please don't follow our itinerary, it was insane. From an accessibility standpoint, most travel information is written by sighted people for sighted people. And when accessibility is mentioned, it's more often with wheelchair users or mobility challenges in mind. At each of the parks, we were able to have memorable conversations with rangers to discuss how things that can help the low vision community can actually help everyone. For example, having rocks to line the path serve as natural guidance to benefit everyone. Our trip started in Sedona, Arizona, which technically isn't a national park, but it is still a very popular hiking destination. Sedona is surrounded by red rocks, a dry desert heat, and an energy that makes the whole place feel alive. Accessibility here showed up in the large, easy-to-spot trail marker and clear signage. Simple, yet effective. Next came the Grand Canyon. The energy there was completely different. It was ancient and immense, stretching on for nearly 2,000 miles, and silent in a way that made the noise inside of us go silent too. Standing at the rim, we felt small in the best possible way, almost as if a single gust of wind could carry us through the railings to the depths below. The area around the visitor center is paved and very accessible, with shuttles making it easy to explore different areas of the park. We're limited, unfortunately, to just the south rim due to fires at the north rim. After the Grand Canyon, we drove to Zion with towering cliffs and crowds that seemed to multiply by the minute. Shuttles ran through the town of Springdale as well as the park itself. The trails we explored were lined with ropes meant to keep visitors on the designated path and accidental accessibility, but the signage wasn't as clear as we'd hoped. Zion also was the first park where we traded accessibility for affordability by staying at a hotel about an hour's drive from the park entrance. Next up was Bryce Canyon. Bryce Canyon National Park is renowned for its unique rock formations known as hoodoos. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of these pillars scattered across the vast amphitheaters. Each one has a bulbous top that balances over a slender, weathered base, giving the impression of stone mushrooms, rough totem poles, or ancient guardians standing watch over the canyon. These tall, slender rocks have been shaped by water, wind, and time, creating a maze of color and shadow that almost feels otherworldly. We didn't have much time here, just an afternoon stop between Zion and Moab, where Arches is. But what we found was more than enough to make us want to return. Bryce Canyon Visitor Center had a tactile map of the building's layout, a tactile map of the park itself, and even had an accessibility guide mounted on the wall for anyone to grab. No need to talk to a ranger to find out more information. Accessibility truly is meant for everyone. They also had a shuttle system to make getting around the park easier. Next was Arches. Arches was the first park that we went to that had timed entry to control the crowds and manage parking, but they had no shuttle system. One of the highlights here was the visitor center because they had a pre-programmed iPhone with talkback enabled to give blind and low vision users an opportunity to know what's written on the exhibit walls. One of the hikes we did here even had Braille on the signage outside of the trail entrance. All of the easy to moderate trails were sand-packed and easy to follow. From a sensory standpoint, Arches was hot and dry. Finally, we traded the desert heat for the cool, crisp air of Crater Lake, Oregon. Nestled in the remains of a once mighty volcano, Crater Lake fills a vast caldera formed thousands of years ago when Mount Mazama erupted and collapsed in on itself. What was once destruction slowly became something breathtaking. Over centuries, rain and snow melt filled the emptiness, transforming devastation into stillness and silence so pure it hums. Until then, we hadn't realized how much we depended on Wi-Fi and service, even if intermittently. Every other park had been relatively fine, allowing us to experiment with apps such as Aira and Be My Eyes. But Crater Lake had almost no cell service up to 15 miles out of the park. The Rim Village area was fully paved and accessible, especially with this ranger program. But beyond that, the park is entirely car dependent and the trails get challenging very quickly due to its elevation, route, and loose rock. Still, due to the ranger program, we were able to do ranger-led hikes and found them to be incredibly attentive and willing to help. Crater Lake truly felt like a hidden gem, with its bluer than blue waters, barely any crowds, and a calm that felt almost sacred. Our final stop was Mount Rainier. From the moment we landed in Seattle, Mount Rainier loomed in the horizon like a giant refusing to be ignored. It wasn't wildly accessible, aside from a few paved paths, but with the incline and the stairs for those paths, it serves as a true challenge for anyone waiting to be humbled. Once we were back home, it was easier to make reflection. At each park, we were able to chat with rangers, and we learned what goes into accessibility when they're designing the parks and the trails. We learned that cost restraint, balancing natural preservation, and a lack of knowledge about what would actually be the biggest benefactors are the biggest barriers. We shared how small changes like clearer signage, better trail boundaries, and tactile maps could actually help everyone. Accessibility is simply good design. I think that parks are one of the best places to show that because nature invites us all to slow down, to notice, and adapt. There's a delicate balance between making nature accessible while preserving its natural beauty. It isn't fair to expect every inch of the wilderness to be paved, but every park that we visited wrestles with that balance, trying to open the outdoors to more people while keeping it wild. We also emphasize that paved trails, while accessible, can get boring to a blind hiker due to the sensory feedback. As much as I complained every time I hit a root or a rock on my white cane, I much preferred those moments than just the feeling of gravel underneath my cane, because I felt more connected to nature, to something bigger than myself. One tip here was that I used the all-terrain cane to go hiking because I found it much better to equip the rough terrain I faced out on the trails, as well as it doubled as a hiking pole because it could support my weight. We realized that vision, or the lack of it, wasn't the biggest obstacle. Physical fitness was. Note to self, fitness at sea levels does not equate to fitness at higher elevation. As a blind hiker, I have just as much responsibility to prepare for hiking as the parks do to provide for a safe environment. My last immediate reflection was that accessibility and affordability don't go always hand in hand. Even with the free National Parks Access Pass, which gives free entry to national parks with proof of disability, hidden costs add up. Staying far from the park did mean more driving, and without my sister behind the wheel, some places would have been much more difficult to reach. All in all, this was a trip for the memory bank, one I'll carry with me for years to come, and it wouldn't be possible without Blind Travel Foundation. My ultimate hope is that more people with vision loss will see themselves not as guests in these national parks, but as belonging to them, because the wilderness is for everyone. Please make sure to check out Blind Travel Foundation's website to read the blogs that we have for each park, as well as to download the free accessibility guide. Thank you.